We need to put some HOLDO maneuvers.
Hello again, and welcome to another episode of the HOLDO MANEUVER podcast. We are back with episode 58 this week. We have joining us again our friend Ralph from the Live Action Star Wars podcast. Welcome, Ralph.
Welcome.
How's it
Thanks
going?
for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad that when you guys decided to do this movie, you thought of me.
Oh, yeah. First person.
Marc had no second options. It was you or nobody.
That's right. And Mike got over his Night Sister's
death.
magic death. So he is back. He is now a stormtrooper zombie coming back to join us this week.
Could be. I would never know if I was. That's the thing.
This week we're going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story.
But before we do that,
yeah,
I have a question for y'all. Why did Han Solo cry when eating a steak dinner?
forgot to eat a salad.
No,
A little
the
chewy.
steak was chewy. Yep.
God dang it. I always said I want to do those jokes when we do these episodes, but you got me to do half of it.
Well, yeah. So with that. So this episode, I kind of wanted to do something slightly different than what we normally do when we go through and do like a retrospective on a movie that's already come out. So you two, I know, are like big kind of proponents of like really pushing Solo as far as
Undervalued.
other like basically steering the narrative differently than like what it has kind of been since it came out like 5 or 6 years ago or so.
I feel like there is a wave that is happening with this movie.
And I put a little Easter egg in the thumbnail art on Ralph's beard too. If you really zoom in, you'll be able to see what it is there too. So for me, I know that I haven't seen this movie as much as Ralph has. Like how many times have you seen?
I'd say I just rewatched it. That would probably make it 4 times.
All right, and Ralph, you said you've seen it like at least 10 times.
At least 10, yeah.
Do you guys know how many times I've seen it?
1.
Not twice. God dang it. Mark.
That's so
okay. So you saw it in the theater, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I watched it at home.
Right. When did you last watch it?
Like
Mark.
a year ago.
Is this why you're not, the format is going to be so loose? Because you didn't do your homework? I
did do homework as far as I watched recaps of the movie, and then I watched like older like Easter egg videos of the movie.
Doesn't count.
And usually
That's
when
Cliff
I watch a movie at least twice or so, I can retain a lot of what I saw within it. But the thing is, what I wanted to kind of do with this one is to
rehash it so you can remember it.
Yeah. So if someone hasn't seen this movie, or if they've only seen the movie once, I want this episode to kind of be like, these are all the reasons why Solo is amazing and why you should watch it. And I feel really as I'm wearing a Solo shirt.
Just watch it.
But yeah.
Watch it with an open mind and you'll be fine.
Here's the thing. Back in 1977, I saw a movie called Star Wars. At least my mom told me. She took me to the theater to see it. I was 3 months old. And it's a movie series that I grew up with, a movie series of 3. And that was that. The prequels came out, and they dove deeper into the lore and backstory of Jedi Knight and the Senate, and they started getting real into the nitty gritty of behind the more than just the adventurous side, more than just an adventure movie. It is now they're trying to create the world and all the inner workings of things. And the TV shows do that as well, especially Ahsoka. Ahsoka, a show that I really liked 7/8 of. I thought Ahsoka was really good. You definitely should watch Rebels and probably Clone Wars prior to that, which is also a dense. There's a lot more than is just being an adventure story, a simple adventure story. It's just jam packed full of world building and information and crossing over of characters and different storylines interwoven through all of this stuff. Ahsoka packs in so much of that stuff into that show. Solo is none of that. Solo is about a guy on an adventure, and it's the most stripped down Star Wars. It's probably the most stripped down Star Wars since 1977, since the original Star Wars. There's the characters are pretty cut and dry. Sure, Solo he's always had that sort of soft spot in him. But for the most part, it's like, here's a bunch of guys. They're trying to survive in the galaxy. They may cross over, some boundaries or not. Maybe I like the greatest people, Beckett and the crew. Those guys, they're smugglers. And so for me, I kind of like the return of just, hey, look, here's a weird monster. We're not going to explain the world. We're not going to get into any of the mystical stuff. I don't think there's anything mystical in this movie. And
other than the maelstrom, maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, still, it's just monsters.
Yeah.
It's just monsters. It's not magic. It's not Night Witch stuff or Night Sisters. It's not, the Force. There's no Force in this movie. I don't even know if the Force is mentioned.
Just a lightsaber. That's about it.
Yeah. There is a lightsaber. We're so close to getting a Star Wars without a lightsaber. Andor, right? Andor didn't have a lightsaber?
Unless you count those things on the wings that shoot at, like...
Nah, I don't count those.
Okay.
And then, the Death Star is a giant
Kyber crystal
space laser. Yeah. But for the most part, like, I just like that, hey, listen, I don't have to watch a billion TV shows or cartoons or read any books. That stuff is still there, which is fine. You can go read, books about Qi'ra and stuff like that. That's fine. You could read like the novelizations, and there's other stories about Han Solo and Chewie. But for the most part, I like that you can just sit down in your seat and just watch this Star Wars adventure that's not tied to the Obi-Wan series. It's not tied to anything. There might be some stuff in there where you're like, oh, that's that guy, like Warwick Davis. He's playing the same character he was in Episode 1. But it doesn't matter whatsoever. So for me, Solo is like the perfect, it's Sunday afternoon. I want to kick back, have a grilled cheese sandwich, and like a glass of lemonade, and I want to watch a fun Star Wars movie. And this fits the bill. I'm not going to sit there and watch The Last Jedi, which is so full of mysticism and story and like, or Rise of Skywalker, where it's just like it's about the struggle of Kylo Ren and where's Rey from and all. No, I want to see a guy and a Wookiee with blasters doing a train heist. I want to see these guys crawling their way out of every corner that they get in trouble. They just get backed into every single corner in this movie, and they all look like they're having fun. Alden Ehrenreich looks like he's having a blast, which is great. Is it going to do anything? There you go. And then, but you know what I mean? Donald Glover just chewing up that meaty Lando role. Like everybody's just having such a good time. And that's what I want to see. I don't need to see angst and sadness and I want to see Solo. I like the other Star Wars movies. But if I want to sit down and just have a good time, Solo for me.
Yeah, I concur. It had the more lighter humor aspect of Star Wars that I clamor for.
Yeah.
It didn't take itself too serious in a way. Like, and I always am for, like, okay, what the hell was that thing on the screen? And then nobody's saying anything about it. When you said that they did that with the monsters, I was like, that's perfect. Like, I don't need you to be like, oh, that's this, and it lives here, and it does this. Like, that's just wasting time.
It's Lady Proxima. It's that appearance of Lady Proxima where you're just like, oh, okay, all right.
That's a tapeworm
Weird.
with nipple rings. Okay, perfect.
Weird. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I want from Star Wars. The original Star Wars was weird, and George Lucas is like, hey man, I'm not going to explain what this world is. You're just stuck in it for the next 2 hours. Same with Solo. Like, Lady Proxima is so weird, and we don't need an explanation. It's the same as Jabba the Hutt. We get it. She's a big, monstery bad guy that's oppressing this guy and this girl that we like. This street rat car thief, who, you know, with the heart of gold, we're like, yeah, this guy seems like a cool guy. Even if you haven't seen any Star Wars and have no idea who Han Solo is, you're like, okay, this is a cool guy. I like these two. They're having a fun time. They're sticking it to the man. They're, you know, a couple of crazy teenagers out there, and then here's this worm that's oppressive, and you're like, that thing's weird, and I don't like that it's that's oppressing our these kids that are just trying to have fun. And so you know, I don't need to see Lady Proxima show up in anything else. I don't need to know where Lady Proxima comes from. All I know is this galaxy is huge.
Very much.
And weird stuff can happen in every corner. And I like this kind of fun corner of Star Wars. Not the ultra serious, hyper dramatic corner. So Solo it's a rare thing. On my Letterboxd, I've ranked Star Wars. And I have Solo at number 3.
Wow.
It's my third favorite Star Wars. It just beats out Return of the Jedi. There's just some stuff in Return of the Jedi. It's just like, yeah.
Yeah. True. No, it's if you.
Mark's checking my letterbox to make sure I'm not lying.
He very much is. I just know when this came out, Disney had just shoehorned it in real fast. It seemed like, and that's where a lot of the upheaval and like hatred came from my opinion. Because I remember a friend of mine being like, when it came out, I was like, you want to go see it? And he goes, no, absolutely not. It's just a money grab, blah, blah. I was like, and? Do you want to go see it? Like, it's going to be good.
Every Star Wars since 1977 has been a money grab.
Exactly. That was my point. I was like, it's all a money grab. Any movie that comes out is a money grab.
What happened was, so here's the thing. This movie came out 5 months after The Last Jedi. Last Jedi, super divisive, still is. Anytime I see it trending on any sort of social media site, I'm like, I'm not clicking the link. I do not want to hear other people talking about The Last Jedi. It had only been 5 months. They had pushed it up so that, I mean, I'm fine with it. I like Star Wars coming out on May 25th. Came out on May 25th. Maybe too soon. People tended to not want to see it. There was some trouble that behind the scenes that was way too, like, people put too much stock into. They're like, you know, like when I was a kid, we didn't know behind the scenes troubles with movies. We just went and saw movies.
Yeah.
So when we saw The Last Jedi, I go and see Star Wars movies with my family, my sister and brother-in-law and nephews and my wife Stevie. And we got out and everyone was kind of like, bleh. And Stevie was like, she's like, I almost fell asleep. It was like the worst Star Wars movie ever. And she still says that. And I half agree with her. The other half I think is really awesome Star Wars. So that's a whole different conversation. But so cut to 5 months later, we get out of Solo. We're hanging out outside the movie theater. And everyone's talking about it. And my brother's like, oh, yeah, it was fun. It was fun. That was kind of fun. Nobody asked me what I thought about it. And I didn't really want to say anything because they weren't really like super gushing about it. And so we get in the car and I turned to Stevie and I said, nobody asked me what I thought of the movie. And she said, well, what did you think of the movie? And I said, I absolutely love that movie. and I think tomorrow I'm going to go see it again.
Excellent.
And she's like, really? She really liked it as well. And it's one of those things where a lot of people didn't go see it because they were mad that Disney was putting it out too soon. It wasn't Harrison Ford. How dare they recast Han Solo when, I mean, who doesn't love Ewan McGregor? I mean, the precedent is there for them to recast younger people. Who doesn't love Genevieve O'Reilly? Like there's certain people where it's like, okay, yeah, like listen, there's a precedent. Like as much as if you don't like the prequels, I don't think anybody has a problem with Ewan McGregor at all. So that for me was like, I don't know what that's not a valid argument. There was people who at work a couple months later came up to me after I was saying all summer long, like, hey, Solo's awesome. Like, I don't know what to say. I thought it was rad. People started coming up to me and saying, oh, I finally watched Solo on Netflix. It was pretty good. I'm like,
told you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's just fun. It's just, it's not, there's nothing in it. There's one thing in it that people do complain about, but there's nothing in it that really makes me groan. Like when I watch the prequels, I'm like, oh boy, Jar Jar stepped in poop. Oh no, Jar Jar got a fart in his face, or oh no, you know, there's the boy, Anakin running around saying wizard. Like there's certain things where and in every Star Wars, there's stuff that makes you.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And with Solo, I was like, there's one thing that everybody groans about. And I get it, but I also think that it lends to the sort of campy nature of Star Wars, and that's where he gets the name Han Solo, or the name Solo. I complain about that. It's pretty cheesy, and when I watch it, I'm just like, man, I don't really. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't. It's not as bad as like, oh, Anakin just happened to make C-3PO. Like, oh man, all the coincidences in like the sequel trilogy. Oh, Rey happens to be Palpatine's granddaughter. Like all these weird sort of big weird connections that they make. Solo is it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, that's my one gripe.
I don't mind it. Yeah, it's the one I won't argue. Like if you have a gripe with that, like I totally get it. I 100% get it. It's really cheesy. It's really, really cheesy, but I don't mind it. I don't mind cheesy stuff in Star Wars. If we didn't have cheesy stuff in Star Wars, there'd be no Anthony Daniels. Yeah. There'd be no Anthony Daniels. Some people might not mind there not being a Jar Jar. As you can see, I have a signed Ahmed Best Jar Jar picture right there on my wall. I like Jar Jar. I'm a fan of Jar Jar. Jar Jar serves a specific purpose. When I was 21, when Phantom Menace came out, I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now because I wasn't the right demographic. But now I'm like, man, I like when Star Wars gets weird. I really like when Star Wars gets weird, and there's no weirder thing than this baby talking lizard rabbit frog thing that gets saddled with two Jedi. Like it's crazy. So when I watch Solo, I'm like, all right, let's bring on the weird stuff. I'm fine with that. Because we've seen desert planets with moisture evaporators and like everything for the last 46 years. Show me something weird. The cantina at the time was really weird. Then they upped it with Jabba's palace and tried to make it more weird. So where do we go? Because Maz's castle just felt like the cantina again. To the credit of Last Jedi, like Luke carrying giant fish and milking those
drinking the blue milk.
Yeah, like I'm like that's weird. And it's been 46 years, like, do that. That's what's going to surprise me in Star Wars. The story's always going to be good versus evil. This has shades of gray. This isn't really about good versus evil. This is about bad people versus less bad people. But if you
what
want to
everyone else is
surprise me,
doing.
yeah, if you're gonna surprise, you're not gonna surprise me with story. You're really not. Ahsoka almost did that, but I mean, it really felt like Clone Wars and Rebels, which is great. But if you really want to surprise me, give me Linda Hunt as a giant space worm. Like, that's weird.
No, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It felt the most Star Warsy thing at the time to me. It wasn't like straight away from the prequel. It did it. Oh, it did it its own thing. It didn't adhere to canon in a way. In my opinion, like, it wasn't strict to be like, oh, it's got to hit this note, this note. Like, I can argue maybe the Kessel Run wasn't needed. Do we need to know how he did it in 12 parsecs? Maybe not.
But for them to make the bold claim that not only was it over 12 parsecs, but it was probably closer to 14. Because he says, yeah, if you round down. And I'm like, it's like they don't care. And what that line tells me is nerds have been saying it for years.
Parsecs are measure of
less than
distance.
12 parsecs.
Okay.
Yes, that's true too. But it also shows how he was able to cut through the maelstrom distance-wise, as opposed to going through it this way. He went this way, which is nuts. So that helped that work. But at the same time, they're not so precious about canon to where, I mean, even in The Force Awakens, they mentioned 12 parsecs. There goes my thumb. They mentioned parsecs in Force Awakens. Like, it's a well-known thing. And this movie's like, we don't care about this we don't care about canon. We don't care about anything. You know what? We're going to have Chewbacca say it's a higher number and have Han just say, well, if you round down, it's 12. So it's somewhere between 13 and 13 and a half parsecs is what he actually did it in, which is hilarious. It just takes the piss out of everything.
Yeah.
It's and that's what I like about it. It's not, it feels like J.J. Abrams is a huge fan of Star Wars and got to make a movie about Star Wars. And he's such a fan, and he holds Star Wars to this great reverence. He's like, I love Star Wars. Rian Johnson's the same way. Rian Johnson, who I believe felt that he had only had one shot to make a Star Wars, and put everything he ever dreamed of while playing with his toys into one gigantic movie.
Yeah. Seems accurate.
So, and then you have like Dave Filoni, who adheres to, like, you know, some old EU stuff. And he worked with George, and he's like, really wants to make sure that he does this right and holds it up to, you know, a specific standard. What Lord and Miller did, and Ron Howard, were like, we want to just make a fun movie.
Right.
That's Star Wars. And they didn't treat it so precious. So everyone's kind of running around having a good time shooting blasters, you know, and it's just, it has an energy to it that I think other Star Wars don't.
Yeah. What you guys are kind of saying too is that, Ralph, I think you watched the Willow Disney Plus series, right?
Yeah, I loved it. I was the guy who loved it.
Yeah, I liked it too, and it's too bad nobody else can watch it now because it's
can't watch it anymore.
Not anywhere to be able to watch it. But this film had a lot of the same creative people in it too, with like the Kasdans, like Jonathan Kasdan went on to do the.
Oh, didn't Ron Howard make Willow?
Yeah, well, Ron Howard made the original Willow. Was he involved with the Disney Plus series at all?
I'd imagine he's
a producer. He was a producer.
Okay. And then obviously Warwick Davis in it again, and then you had Aaron Kellyman in it too, who played Enfys Nest here in Solo. Also then showed up in that too. And
so
I was just gonna say, like, that show kind of feels like it has like the same kind of like vibe to it in a way as Solo does.
And the thing, what's fun about Willow is that it's a property that nobody cares about other than a handful of people, including myself. So they definitely didn't have to be very precious with the source material, and they just went nuts. By every episode, I was laughing. I was laughing hysterically at the music choices
Oh yeah.
because they're nuts. They're nuts music choices. They have a cover of Enter Sandman at the end of one episode, and I was like,
Nice.
"What is happening?" This show gives
awesome.
0 Fs. They give, and they went crazy. But yeah, so apparently, John Kasdan grew up. Lawrence Kasdan's son, obviously, knew Uncle George, got toys from Uncle George. Uncle George would send any Star Wars toys, anything Lucasfilm related, to the Kasdans, and John would get to play with that stuff. Huge Willow fan, finds himself on the set of Solo, which he wrote with his dad, sitting with Warwick Davis, and said, I'd love to do a Willow series. And Warwick Davis is like, if you can make it happen, I mean, yeah, go for it. And so they made it happen. So John Kasdan, I feel like the way this movie was written is, I know that Lawrence Kasdan loves Han Solo. It's what made him want to do The Empire Strikes Back. And he said, when after The Force Awakens, Lucasfilm was essentially like, if there's anything you want to do, let me know. And he's like, I want to do Young Han Solo Adventures. And they're like, well, okay. And so he does it with his son. And I feel like Lawrence Kasdan, he's said before he's never seen the prequels. I feel like the adventure and fun and the whole non-really canonical, or it's in canon, but it's the non sort of wrapped up in all the other stories. Yeah,
Right.
is Lawrence Kasdan being like, this is what it is. It's just this movie. It's an adventure heist action movie. That's what it is. And then you have John Kasdan, who comes in and he's like, he read every EU book. He's putting Dryden Voss's, all that stuff in Dryden Voss's yacht is all stuff from like old EU artifacts. And John Kasdan just like ate that stuff up. And so between those two, it's not that John Kasdan doesn't care about the greater storyline. It's just that I feel like Lawrence Kasdan's like, I just want to write a Han Solo adventure, and John
Right.
Kasdan's like, I'll help you out, and I'm going to inject some weird references, like Lando's diaries is like, there's a whole book series about Lando's diaries, and he mentions it in the thing, like stuff like that. So like, and then you get Ron Howard, who came in after Lord and Miller. I have some inside information as far as the Lord Miller cut. Almost identical to the Ron Howard cut. There's not really any changes. They just didn't want Lord and Miller anymore, and so they brought in Ron Howard to reshoot. But a lot of the footage, a lot of the tone is pretty much the same.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
But
He didn't
with
do
Ron
much.
Howard, by the time George Lucas was making Star Wars, Ron Howard's probably the first Star Wars fan, because on the set of American Graffiti, Ron Howard was talking to George, and George was telling him about this Flash Gordon type of story that he wanted to do. And Ron Howard was like way into it. He's like, oh, I want to see that. And so Ron Howard's been a fan of Star Wars before Star Wars. So he's coming at it from a point of view of like, I liked Star Wars. 1977, my friend George made a movie, and I want to make a movie like that. And they gave him the keys, and he went out and just made a fun Western. Like it feels like a Star Wars heist movie, and it just,
Very
I
much
mean, it's
is.
got everything. It's got everything from like the 70s, like car chases and
Train heist,
it
car
feels like,
chases.
yeah, it feels like any movie from the 70s, like, like Vanishing Point or Butch Cassidy or whatever. And that's what they set out to do. It still is, like, they still set out to make a good movie. They just didn't want to like get stuck in this sort of current state of Star Wars.
Yeah, a lot of. I was just gonna say a lot of that stuff in Corellia at the beginning of it, like with like kind of like the car chase stuff there feels very kind of American graffiti-esque.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
like even like his daughter Bryce Dallas Howard has directed a lot of the best episodes of like Star Wars TV too. So
Yeah. They need to give her a movie.
yeah,
I'm fully on board with the make Solo 2 happen, people. And
I can get down with it.
let Ron Howard. The funny thing about Ron Howard is that, you know, the internet being the internet, jumped all over Solo when it didn't make $1 bazillion at the box office, and people were like, "Oh, it's a flop. It's whatever." And it's like, it's a good movie. It's like The Creator. Have you guys seen The Creator? I love The Creator, and people are like, "Oh, it's a flop." Well, no, who cares? It's a really good movie, and I feel like it's going to find its audience as soon as it hits streaming. But it's one of those things where, like, same with Solo, it got dumped on for not being as big of a hit as the other stuff. But Ron Howard jumped on social media and was like, "This is my biggest movie. This is my biggest movie opening. This is my highest grossing movie, my best opening weekend." And it's like all perspective.
it's all relative. To
It's all,
whatever.
yeah. It doesn't matter. Like he was happy with it. I went and saw it twice opening weekend, and I saw it a third time, like in the middle of week by myself. I just like, hey, I'm gonna go see Solo, just because it brought me so much joy. It's not a movie with when like the main characters die in the movie, when Val dies and everybody dies. I'm not sitting there sad. It's not there for an emotional punch. It's a Saturday serial the way Star Wars was supposed to be. And it's like, these are just characters. They're literally action figures. You don't have to be so invested into them where they're going to cry. Like when L3 gets exploded and Lando's like crying, my wife's like, I don't even like her. Like, I'm not even sad. I'm like, you don't have to be sad. It's a freaking droid. And
Right.
it's not even an emotional moment for me or any of the audience, but it's like one of those things where it's like, it's a movie. It's going to happen. You know, it's not like a Lord of the Rings where you spend, 9 hours and get invested in the character. So by the time you get to the end of the 12th hour, you're crying because you're so invested. No, this is just a fun movie that doesn't really need the only sort of emotion it wants from you is happiness and joy. And so
And she essentially becomes the Falcon
Right.
after that too.
oh, it's just so good. And the thing is, I knew it was coming because when she plugs in to the nav computer, it makes her eye blinks and it does the Falcon startup sound. And as it's going, I'm like, oh, I wonder if she has a very peculiar dialect. She's real sassy. She's a real free thinker. As far as droids go, she's really tough and has free will and is really doesn't mind letting you know that she has free will and is not going to take any guff from anybody. I'm like, if she ends up being the nav computer for the Falcon, I mean, it gives the Falcon so much more personality. It really does. And that's not something that I was looking for. I didn't need to know the gritty backstory of the Falcon's nav computer.
Yeah.
But they slid it in there, and it could have been one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, Anakin built C-3PO. Oh boy, grown. But no, I was like, I kind of like it. It gives me more insight on what the Falcon is, and it just, I don't know. It works because I'm not the biggest L3 fan. I like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but L3 is super abrasive on purpose.
Right.
Nothing against her,
Very
but
over the
just the
top.
character. Yeah. And so for me, it's like when she gets blasted, I'm just like, well, I mean, she's a droid. Like R2 got blasted in Star Wars, he was fine. C-3PO
He'll
got
lose his leg.
mauled. Yeah, he got mauled in Star Wars and got blown to bits in Empire, and they're fine. So I really didn't care that much because I'm not as emotional as Lando. But it really does tie Lando to the Falcon now. which by the time you get to Rise of Skywalker and even Return of the Jedi, you're like, he's where he belongs. He's with the Falcon. So, it does stuff that normally you'd be mad at, but I'm not mad at it. I really don't groan at this movie. There's nothing really groan-worthy. For me, there's one thing that's groan-worthy, and it's the music during the Kessel Run. Makes me so mad.
Just playing.
I have to go back and listen to it more closely again. I guess I didn't pay.
So they just took parts of John Williams' scores from Star Wars during the TIE Fighter escape from the Death Star, and the asteroid field chase from The Empire Strikes Back, and lifted out recordings and spliced them in poorly during that section. Yeah. I have a friend of mine who was like, "What was up with the music of that movie? They just stole music." I'm like, "Listen, man," I said, "that whole score is great. I absolutely hate the Kessel Run because they did that." John Powell did the music for this movie, and it's all original music, and it's great. He uses the old Imperial theme. Marc's heard me talk about that from 1977, before they introduced the Imperial March in Empire Strikes Back. John Powell uses that music. He really went in and did stuff. John Williams did compose the first time Han Solo gets an original theme, which is great. It's just the Kessel Run music is just it just drives me up the wall. Like, this is your big moment. This is a thing we've been hearing about forever. This is the equivalent of the Mustafar lightsaber duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like, the Kessel Run, we've been hearing about it since 1977, and we get to see it, which is great, but the music just
I have to one point with the music, because they used the Imperial March or whatever in a propaganda video within the universe.
Yeah,
like,
which it's not. John Powell didn't do that music. That music was taken from Kevin Kiner for Rebels during Imperial. Is it Empire Day?
Yeah, Empire Day.
They have a parade and they use that music. So he took that music for that sequence, which is 100% in canon already by the time that Solo came out.
I was just because I haven't watched Rebels, so I didn't know that part. And
it's the Imperial March, I think, in a different key.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's more heroic. It's in a more heroic key. Yeah,
patriotic feel, and I was just chuckling at that moment. I was like,
but the thing is, that moment comes right before the Solo part, so a lot of people mention those two things.
Like kind of sequenced together. Yeah. The other. So.
Sorry, I was rocking out to John Powell.
Which, speaking of John Powell, Mondo did a really good vinyl release of the score from Solo. Because I think you have it.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, I have that. And the art for it's really cool, like how they did like the sleeve on it, so like it looks like the window of the Falcon on it.
John Powell, who I was listening to a lot of the other day, I just popped him on shuffle. I love John Powell. If you don't know John Powell, he's essentially the Michael Giacchino of DreamWorks animated movies. Yeah. He's done like almost everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. Rio, Horton Hears a Who, Chicken. No, well, he did Ice Age 2, but he did Kung Fu Panda. He did with Hans Zimmer and stuff. He's done just a ton of DreamWorks movies. He did the Bourne Identity movies. He's great. He's a name that should be more well known. So if you get a chance, I highly recommend sitting down and listening to the score to Solo. There's a lot of energy in it. And during the train heist, as soon as you see the range troopers, which are my favorite troopers of the Disney era, they have the boots that clamp onto the train, and they have the big fur collars. As soon as they step foot on the train, you'll hear that 1977 Imperial theme, the one that was in Star Wars, that John Williams never used again, but Michael Giacchino brought back in Rogue One. So, nice. Yeah.
So, now with you guys, when you saw Solo, had you watched Clone Wars yet at that point? When you had seen Solo, okay.
Haven't watched Clone Wars yet.
Okay, so
Unless you're talking, yeah,
I was
you're
gonna
talking
say,
about the animated series.
yeah, I was gonna say, I guess for you then, when you saw the end of Solo and Maul showed up, were you
It
like,
made sense.
yeah, were you like, what?
I at this point in time, like nothing in Star Wars surprises me to the point where I'm like, what the hell just happened? It was more like, okay, how did that happen? Like
Yeah.
now I got to figure out what the heck's going on here. Like it's not like I'm upset, I'm confused, like rah rah rah. It's more like, okay, there's something I missed. Let me go research it.
Right. That's like the only thing really
Yeah.
that ties in to other sort of properties. Well, I mean, obviously Han Solo and Chewbacca tie into the original trilogy and stuff, but it's a real weird one. It's a real weird one.
Especially because he just and then ignites his lightsaber for some
That's his move. That's what he does.
He's like, I'm on a
It's a bit
call.
of a groaner. I guess it is a groaner.
Because I mean, if he
Yeah.
didn't ignite that, then there wouldn't be a lightsaber in the movie.
No,
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just feels weird for him to ignite it. Just
Maybe it's just so people, in case, thought
Oh,
it
yeah.
they
was
thought it was a different person.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it's true. But yeah, and then like
we have Sam Witwer does the voice.
Oh, yes,
this time
yeah.
around, who does the animated one. Kind of hoping Peter Serafinowicz came back, but I guess he got in trouble with Lucasfilm for when he was in Spaced, and they were making fun of the Phantom Menace and stuff. I think he kind of like didn't get asked back. But that's fine.
That's kind of interesting, especially since Simon Pegg would then go on to be in Force Awakens.
Well, that's a JJ thing. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Him and JJ are like,
Yeah, that's what happens when you get cast in Mission Impossible 3. You become friends with J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
So like some of the other stuff in the movie too, like with like Sabak, like the whole origin story there with like Han or Han as
ham.
as Lando.
That's all old legend stuff that we've known for years, and they finally brought it in. I have a Sabak deck somewhere. I brought it out. I still need to learn how to play. I
almost bought that when I went to Galaxy's Edge, but
it's like $16 or something. It's like it's like the cheapest thing you can get in Disneyland.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
including a bottle of water.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess speaking of Lando too, we like originally they were going to do a Lando Disney Plus series, which now seems like it is now going to be a movie that Donald Glover and his brother are writing. Now, do you think that essentially is Solo 2, or do you think that's like?
I don't.
I guess what would
I
you
hope
want
it's
to
its own
see
thing.
from? Yeah,
Yeah, I hope.
I don't
it's
mind
still
it being
a
its own thing. I don't want it to be a prequel of this. I don't need to see L3 and stuff. I do. I feel like I wouldn't mind seeing Alden Ehrenreich though.
yeah, kind of.
I really
Maybe
like-
like where like this like Solo, was focused on Han and Chewbacca and all that, and then like Lando kind of came in somewhere like midway and kind of was
Yeah.
in it, but like kind of
He was there.
ancillary. Maybe like that's how the Lando movie is. It's like more Lando focused with like.
They
Han's
could do
also
what
here for a little
Lando.
bit.
It could be after Lando leaves him on Savareen to he loses.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
see what happens from there.
See what he's been doing.
Uh, I think if anything, I'd like to see Emilia Clarke come back
I agree.
as
100%.
Qi'ra, and we can get a little bit more of that. But other than that, I mean, yeah, if it's just a straight up Lando movie, I'd be curious to see what that's like. But yeah, I think Alden Ehrenreich showing up would be a ton of fun. I think, people say how great Donald Glover is in this movie, but Alden Ehrenreich really
Alden's great.
embodies the spirit of Solo, which I like. He's not doing an impression, but he has the same sort of mannerisms, and he feels like Han Solo, which I like. I feel like Donald Glover is doing a little bit of an impression of Billy D. I prefer Alden Ehrenreich's Solo because he has that essence. And I've said it before, people will get mad that it's not, Harrison Ford or someone who's doing a Harrison Ford impression. Like, as a comic book reader, I could read like 5 different Spider-Man stories and have 5 different artists and still make it feel like it's the same character. Why can't artists do that, like who are actors? Unless they really do a bad job. I think Alden Ehrenreich really nailed it. I really do. I really like him as Solo. I really want to see him return, and I'm all for it 100%.
He was great in this. I didn't need to see Harrison Ford, and I think it would have been worse if Harrison Ford was in it de-aged and all that.
But at any point, did you think, "Oh, this isn't Han Solo"?
No.
It feels like Han Solo. I don't know what he's doing, but it feels like Han Solo. Like, I don't know what kind of training he did or what kind of studying he did and watched Harrison Ford, but he gets it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no... Oh, if Harrison Ford was in it, it would have been better. No, it wouldn't have. It probably would have been worse, if you think about it.
Yeah. Like...
Harrison Ford is not... It's like... He's, like, pretty anti-Star Wars to me.
And he said he loved this movie, too, which I just love.
Because he didn't have to do anything.
Probably because he didn't.
Yeah, because
it was about his character, but he didn't have to be in it.
Yeah. Well, it's probably the first. I mean, it's the first time he gets to watch someone be Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, imagine Harrison Ford doesn't. It's like, oh, everyone thinks Han Solo's cool. I guess that's cool. I don't know. Han Solo, I guess he's cool. I don't know, I haven't seen him. So getting to sit back and watch someone else do the character, especially written by Lawrence Kasdan, he gets to see what all the fuss is about. I think across the board, everybody nailed it as far as bringing this character to life with a new actor. I think the costumes were great, the hair was great, the makeup, the performance, the casting, the directing. It's just, I think he's perfect as Han Solo. Like, I look at that and I'm like, that's Han Solo. I don't think, oh, that's the actor Alden Ehrenreich. And plus, I hadn't really seen him in anything before, so it wasn't like Woody Harrelson or Donald Glover or Emilia Clarke, who I've seen in other stuff, so I'm just thinking of them as actors. This is a new guy to me, and he's just Han Solo. And
the only thing I'd seen him in was Hell Caesar before that, and I think he's been good in everything he's been in since that too, like that Cocaine Bear. He was in Oppenheimer recently too. Like, he's barely.
Oh, he's great in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, but like the part, like the screen time that he has in that, like, he kind of steals, and he's in scenes with Robert Downey Jr. too. So, like, he's doing a great job in that film. So, I would definitely like to see him play Solo again too. What's kind of funny too is what people have pointed out since the Kenobi Disney Plus series came out too, is that kind of takes place roughly around the same time as this movie. So then you have to think about the fact that, like, how old Leia is.
Like 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And then so you're like, oh, that's interesting.
Well, look how old Padme was when he first met Anakin. Like,
I think she was like 14 and he was like 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, but
yeah, I'm not too concerned. It's so let me ask you this, Mark. Like, is there anything we said that made you want to, like, jump back in and see it for a third time?
Yeah, like, I've never had any, like, I've never, like, not, like, I've just kind of been, like, in a neutral area, I guess, with the movie, where, like, I didn't dislike it, but it wasn't like,
I think now's the perfect time to watch it.
exactly.
I think Ahsoka was so dense with fantasy and Star Wars lore and mysticism and all that stuff. This is a real good thing to just kind of put on and enjoy, and not. Yeah. And I'm not. I don't like when people say, "Oh, you just turn off your brain and watch it." I don't like that, but I do like this. This movie isn't trying to challenge you. Isn't trying to. It's not over dramatic. It's not trying to, be some grand, like, Shakespearean plot or anything. No, it's guys with laser guns and a guy with a scratchy face that has laser daggers. It's a robot that causes a robot uprising. It's
right.
it's a Wookiee smashing guards into the floor. It's it's
ripping their arms off.
yeah, it's just fun. So
For the
I
actress
don't know,
who
man.
played L3, was she on set and then mocapped into, or
For
So
Hugo
yeah,
Weavers?
she was on set. Yeah, she was on set in essentially a green leotard, but they had the L3 hat on her, and the arms and some of the legs, so that they can get visual reference of what her movements were, and the lighting on the stuff. Because L3 I think looks really good.
yeah, and
I don't-
the movements they do. I was like, that's just. I wasn't sure if it was 100% CGI or if there
Yeah, I
was some
think
mocap
they-
in there. And
I think they were planning on using the bits that were visible, but ended up just doing CG, but they adjusted the lighting to match exactly how it was shot. So it looks pretty like camera accurate. It looks like it was done in camera. Yeah, I really like her. I've really only seen her in Dial of Destiny, and I really liked her in that.
Yeah. Which
I
I
need to
remember
rewatch Solo.
when that came out, people were like, "Hey, look, L3 and Han are reunited," and people were like, "He probably doesn't care, and she probably doesn't remember doing the move." But
Yeah.
she was also, if people haven't seen it, she was really good in the show that she wrote and acted in Fleabag too. So I would highly recommend that if people haven't seen it. She also wrote one of the more recent Bond movies too, right, Ralph?
Yeah, she did some sweetening of the script for No Time to Die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
she
she's
the
a-
one where the it got shut down because of harassment or whatever? They canceled the
that
show.
could be any show like in the past.
No, there was one specifically, and I don't think maybe it's not Fleabag.
I don't think it was that one.
That like the lead actress was the reason why it got shut down
Nope.
because she was so awful to the crew and everything. So there was like, fine, we're canceling your show.
I think that's Ellen. I think you're thinking
Well,
of
yeah.
Ellen.
It's very much Ellen.
Or Roseanne.
No, they didn't cancel her show. They just killed her off.
Just changed it to the Connors. Now, speaking of new characters and stuff, like so people that are in this movie that weren't Han or Lando or Chewie, so we kind of talked about like Beckett and Qi'ra. Who did you guys kind of like the most for like the new characters they introduced?
Lady Proxima. I do like Dryden Voss. I think that what's his name?
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany. I think he was really intimidating. I thought it was really good. Really, when he got intense, you really felt it. I thought he was a really good bad guy. Yeah, he might be my favorite of the new cast. I mean, Woody Harrelson's Woody Harrelson. I kind of
Yeah.
wish the Beckett role was done by. I mean, as much as I like Woody Harrelson, he's great in the movie, but I think it would have been awesome if they cast Kurt Russell in the role, because Kurt Russell was up for Han Solo back in 1976 when they were auditioning for Star Wars, and I thought he would have made a great Han Solo, and it would have been a nice nod if he played sort of Han's mentor in this. But Woody Harrelson's great.
This was right around the time Woody Harrelson like blew back up. He was in so much at this time.
Yeah,
In this,
like
Hunger Games, Zombieland.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Mike?
There's no one like everyone they introduced got killed, so it's like,
Oh,
Qi'ra made it.
yeah, but he excluded her from.
or no,
My
I,
list.
no. You can. I could say.
It's like Kira's the one I was drawn to. Okay, I wanted to see more of her. I want to know what she's been doing without reading the books. I think she needs more spots now.
Right.
Nice.
And
Crimson
they
Dawn.
mentioned Dathomir, so she could appear in something because aren't they going to Dathomir now that they're out of whatever planet on Ahsoka?
Oh, yeah, they'd have to age her up, I guess, with makeup though, because that'd be like
They
They
don't
didn't do it
have
with they didn't do it with Mom Mothma.
They
yeah.
don't have to.
yeah. I guess it's
She got de-aged between
Return of the
Return of the
Jedi
Jedi
and
and
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka. which
Yeah,
is
I
a
had-
precedent. Which means, can we get Alden Ehrenreich in a post Return of the Jedi Han Solo?
They're just
Oh.
hanging out with the Luke that we've had so far.
I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what the rules are anymore.
There are no
I
rules.
did. I did have someone
cares?
tell me that had watched
Make it
Ahsoka
fun.
that,
Yeah, make it fun.
that kept blowing their mind. They were like, "Wait, Ahsoka takes place after Return of the Jedi? I thought it took place before A New Hope," and I was like, "No, it's
I like the after.
after." But I mean, I guess I could feel, because there's not really too much in it to tell
It was tough to. It was tough to remember. This isn't Rebels. This doesn't take place right before Star Wars. This takes place after. There was a little bit. We needed something to sort of let us know what was happening to the Rebels crew during the original trilogy.
Yeah. And then this movie also had Jon Favreau and yet another Star Wars role too within this.
Yeah.
And this was just like he was developing Mando around the time of this movie coming out. So it was like just before that would come out and like before Disney Plus would be a thing.
I really like him in this as Rio.
Yeah.
I think he's a
Really
cool
good.
design, an interesting design.
Yeah.
I like that he was using the like stormtrooper outfit pretty much as a puppet,
Yeah.
to where he was like hiking up his pants with the with his fourth hand.
Kind of like
I like it.
what's his
The
name
way he
from episode 2? Dex.
yeah, Dexter. Yeah,
Pulling up it.
yeah. He's a. I like him. I like this character. Again, very thin sort of backstory, if any. Just kind of what he's,
Gives you the name of his race, and that's about it.
Yeah, and then that's it. Yeah, he
That's
gets-
usually that's just a little more than we usually get.
yeah.
It's more than we need. Like, I didn't care if I knew what he was.
Nah.
No, this movie, like, everyone just had fun making it. You could tell, like, they enjoyed their roles and were having fun in them.
It's not
Yeah.
precious. It's not a precious movie. It's a movie, which is what I like. I like it. I like when a movie is just a movie, and not some artistic statement or
Right.
I mean, I don't mind like social commentary and stuff. That's what good sci-fi does. But sometimes I just want to see blasters. I just want to see. I want to see guys shooting it out in a mine, trying to get onto the Falcon. Like, it's
Well,
great.
robots go nuts.
Yeah.
And now you can go and get your own coaxium when you go to Galaxy's Edge.
Do they have it?
Like,
I think so. Well, I mean, like on the Millennium Falcon, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought you meant I could get like a violet
Oh yeah.
coaxium.
I mean,
probably could.
I want to be surprised.
I don't know what you
They-
would
they
do with
sell
it.
Everything else.
You inject it into your car so you can
Yeah.
make the Kessel Run and
Less than 12
13
months.
get away from the maw.
In about 13 and a half parsecs,
Yeah.
roughly.
That's what
yeah.
Star Wars 1313 actually was. It was actually
There you
a
go.
game about
The Kessel Run.
the Kessel Run.
I was going to ask you guys if they think they're going to mention coaxium ever again.
They
I mean, they
mention it,
Yeah, they
Do
do on
they?
the
Yeah.
Millennium Falcon, right?
Well, I meant in a movie
but
or
I think
a show.
I want to say it's somewhere.
It was in Bad Batch season 2.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, it was. Now that I remember.
Yeah,
Now that I think about it.
but I guess as we wrap up, do you guys have any like closing kind of thoughts or like statements about?
Yeah, watch this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I guess
Mark.
that kind of speaks for itself.
I think
watched it
that
twice.
I think that the shower scene is probably my favorite scene from the Disney era.
With Chewie and Han.
Because it's so good, because the introduction of Chewie is so good. And this is where things aren't precious, and where we don't have to have these overbloated backstories. George Lucas was always just like faster, more intense. Let's just get in and out. You don't need you don't need to over explain anything. If I drop the name Clone Wars and Star Wars, someone's gonna, whatever. That it doesn't matter. You just get it from the context. Let's come on. Let's move it along. So here you have these two. You have this guy who's thrown into a pit with a mud monster, and he being Han Solo, weasels his way out of this confrontation. And it's in any other movie, you would have some sort of montage or some sort of like overarching story that happens throughout the course of the movie where they're at each other's throat the whole time. It happened in Rebels with Zeb and with Ezra, and you're like, the whole movie's going to be this freaking, I know they're going to be friends.
Right.
So what Lawrence and John Kasdan do is like, we're not going to do that.
Right.
We'll have them washing mud off of each other, and it's an instant connection. And Han looking a bit Chewie and saying, "You can't wait your turn, buddy," is like immediately, boom, it clicks. These guys are brothers. These guys are they helped each other get out of this situation, and now boom, fast friends. Cut to them on sort of the undercarriage of the ship, wrapped in, blankets or towels, and just introducing each other to themselves. Mm-hmm. And Chewbacca saying, "I'm Chewbacca." He's like, says this long thing. He's like, we're gonna have to come up with a shorter name. And it's like, sometimes you don't need origin stories. We learned that with Episode 2 in Boba Fett. You don't need the over-explanation of some of these Star Wars characters. And that shower scene is the perfect shorthand. How do we get these two together? Well, let's put them in the most intimate setting. But it'll be functional because they're both covered in mud. This is like... And it's Chewie's idea. Like, Han's like, I'm getting in there. I'm getting this gunk off me. And then Chewbacca's just like, well, you're going to take all the warm water. And so he just like jumps in and is like, screw it, Because
right.
this is the Wookiee way. He's treating him like probably a fellow Wookiee. Wookiees probably shower together. And it's like the perfect shorthand. It's the faster, more intense approach of like, we know they're friends. We know they're going to be friends. This is the quickest way to show that. And
we don't need them button heads the whole time.
It's a 20-second scene. Literally, it's like a 20-second scene, and it's like, boom, there's Han and Chewie. And I believe that's Han Solo, not Alden Ehrenreich. And it's the perfect moment. Because the whole time you're like, at the beginning, you're like, well, it's always been Han and Chewie, and just seeing Han and Qi'ra doesn't feel right. But as soon as Chewbacca shows up, and it's such a light moment when he's speaking Wookiees, broken Wookiee speak, Sheerwook. It's broken Sheerwook, and it's the words that are subtitled. They're so broken up, and it's like he's trying everything he can. Chewbacca's like, okay, well, at least he's trying. This dumb kid. Chewbacca's 200 years old, and here's this like teenager. It's like, all right, I can't be mad at this guy. And so I just love the relationship. Once it's Han and Chewbacca, it's no longer Alden Ehrenreich and Junice. It's Han and Chewbacca. So the whole them meeting and coming together in probably a total of like 4 minutes. By the time they drop into the pit, by the time they're showering, it's probably like 4 minutes, and it's like perfect. You're not wasting my time with so much backstory. We're getting in, we're getting out, we're moving forward. Let's get to the train heist. Yeah.
Let's get to the excitement.
Yeah. Faster, more intense.
And then for another sales pitch for it is during the Kessel Run when they're being chased by the Empire and they have that TIE fighter chase. It's a different TIE fighter chase. It's nothing we've seen before. He takes him out skidding on an ice comet, breaking the windshield, freezing the guy, and then he crashes. It's just like the total disregard for...
He kicks a TIE fighter.
Yeah, that was just an exciting, different aerial battle that you didn't get before.
Yeah.
So,
with monsters in space.
With monsters, yeah.
This is pre-Purgle.
Yeah, there's no Purgle yet. We have a space octopus of sorts.
Yeah, they may have shown up in Rebels by this point. I'm not sure.
Probably. 2018? Were they around then?
Yeah.
Possibly,
yeah.
Because I remember people when that first episode with them showing up, people got upset about being a filler episode. Little did they know how
It'd be like
important
the
those
biggest
Purgle would
moment
be.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that'll wrap up our discussion about Solo. I will definitely watch the movie again. Uh,
Yeah, it's
I've now
fun,
been
man.
fully swayed from neutral to.
We twisted your arm.
I'm telling
I
you,
don't- I
right
don't
now
have
is the best time.
Updated camera, so it doesn't do the cool stuff when I do this. But,
Yeah.
Um,
It's now's the perfect time. I think after just being inundated with everything from Ahsoka, like the larger canon, the Thrawn, and the whole, like, all of that huge, like, not only is the fate of the galaxy in trouble, but a fate of a different galaxy is in trouble. Like, there's so much going on. It's nice to just see guys trying to steal some gas.
This is the people who are on the ground living life every day,
Yeah,
dealing with what they got to deal with, just getting by.
yeah.
and Ralph, if people haven't caught an episode that you've been on before with us, where can they find you and everything you talk about with Star Wars Online?
At Live Action Star or Live Action SW on socials, or liveactionstarwars.com. That takes you to our YouTube page where we just did an episode about Helix, a Star Wars inspired band hired by
saw that.
Disneyland, and I highly recommend checking out the documentary about Helix and our episode on it.
Nice. Check that out. So, and then for Mike and I, you can find us at all of the respective places online. You can basically just go to linktree/HoldoPod. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all at HoldoPod. And that individually, we're all at our first and last names there too. Also, Mike and I are also on Blue Sky now with you, Ralph. Mike's finally
Yeah,
on there
I'm
now too. So, and then our editor, Vactor, you can find him at Vactor on Instagram and Twitter too. And then you can email us at holdopod@gmail.com. But, as always, we are grateful to George Lucas for creating the Star Wars universe.
Here, thank the maker.